Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back with another episode. Today I have Doug Hetzler. Doug, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tom.
Doug, although you are certainly well known for your work at Gibson's, that's not what we're here to talk about today, at least not primarily. We're here to talk about the celebration of America's 250th anniversary through the automobile.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us what was your vision or what is your vision around this?
Yeah, I had the idea. So when we're talking about celebrating America's 200, economically, especially after the war, all these factories were booming. And obviously, we all know the story of how cars were in the 50s, became cultural icons. And so I thought it would be really cool if we could get 250 cars lined up and put them in a chronological order. So as you walk down the row, you can see the evolution of the automobile through American manufacturing. And so we call it the Evolution Car Show. And so we initially were going to have this as a parade so people could just sit on the side of the road and watch the cars go by, which I would think was the best idea. But really difficult to close roads around here because many of the roads, like 16 and 27, those are all state roads, and it's very bureaucratic and can get very expensive to close those roads. So we pivoted and decided to go with a static show. And so we selected Louise Hays Park, as is so well known in the town. And so, yeah, that's what we decided to do.
What was your first car?
My first car was it was a GMC Sprint, which is basically an El Camino, but the GMC, not the Chevrolet El Camino, the Chevy version of the GMC version, so the knockoff.
Or the Ford Ranchero.
Or the Ranchero, yeah.
Okay. It strikes me that, there was part of this show is absolutely to celebrate the American automobile industry. But as we move towards July 4th of 2026, we've been thinking a lot about resilience in our community. How does this show, in your mind, help us with that issue?
This is going to be the first, I'll call it big. I'm not sure how big it's actually going to end up, but this is going to be the first big organized event in the park since the flood. And although we're not directly connecting this with flood, what we do want to do is let folks know that we want to start adding good memories to the park, because last year's stuff was heartbreaking for everyone. And so the idea is to come out to the park. This is going to be totally free to the public. You can just come out and enjoy the cars. There's going to be tents out there selling things. There's going to be food trucks, and just come out and relax. And it's a good memory. You don't have to really expend any energy other than coming and hanging out. And so you can walk the trail, you can go dip your feet in the water, you can fish, you can come look at the cars. And the idea behind it is just again to try to build good memories again since the flood.
July 4th of 2026 is 250th anniversary of the United States. And many communities are having their own celebration, as we are here as well. So could you tell us a little bit about Kerr250?
Sure. Kerr250 is a small group that got together and started balling ideas about what could we do to celebrate America's 250th here in our community, and kind of some things that we felt would be appropriate for our size of community. We kicked around lots of different ideas. The banter back and forth around the committee was great. But there's quite a few things happening through the Daughters of the American Revolution, the DAR. They have quite a few events happening. And there's going to be 44 flags up and down Sidney Baker Street. And the only reason there's 44 is because that's how many poles are there. It's not a significant number other than that's how many poles that K-Pub has. And they have these brackets mounted up there. So we got some special brackets made, and they're going to hold the flags. The car show is another one of the events. There's a group that are selling trees to plant a tree. And the idea is that you buy a tree and it comes with a metal medallion, similar to what you would get if you run a 5K, that kind of thing. And that medallion will hang in the tree, and it's a commemorative tree that you're planting in commemorating America's 250th. And there's, of course, the 4th on the River. That's going to be a big deal this year. And I think the committee that's put that together has made some fabulous choices, because they were in a tight spot. And how do you memorialize at the same time you celebrate? And I did not envy the committee that had to tackle that. But what they've decided to do is split those things. So they're going to have a memorial the day before, and then the celebration actually on the 4th. So that's a tough deal. But we chose for this event, we chose May 16th because it's a busy Saturday. This is not an event where you can have to come and stay all day. You can just spend 20 minutes or an hour there if you want. But there's a lot of stuff going on that day. But we didn't want to try to compete with the 4th on the river because that's clearly the event for the year. So
You mentioned several organizations who are part of Kerr250, but what I want our listeners to understand is the breadth and scope of people and entities participating in Kerr250 is literally huge.
yeah, it is.
And you mentioned several of them, the Museum of Western Art.
Yep.
We're going to have music, as you said.
Yep.
Perhaps my favorite so far is Kerrville Pets Alive, who are going to give free washes and the dogs go home with it.
Like a
USA
little
bandana.
yeah.
Yeah. And I really cite that specific example because any organization could be involved
Sure, yeah.
and you are only limited by your imagination.
100%. Yep. So what we've done we're like a very loose committee. And what we've done is Gibson's actually sponsored the website so that Gibson's paid to put a website up for Kerr250. And so if anybody wants to check out what's going on, you can go to Kerr250.com and there is an events page where you can see all these events. If you have an event that you're doing, you can just reach out to us and we will get that event put up. It doesn't cost you anything. This is a community. This whole thing is just a make your community better type of an effort. And so we can post events for you if you're having something, a little local parades. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on. Or if you're doing nothing and you didn't even know this existed, go check it out. There's cool stuff.
Doug, I can still distinctly remember July 4th of 1976.
Yeah, me too.
And that was a very moving time for me because I learned a lot of American history as the lead up and actually on that day. And so I wanted to maybe see if I could reflect with you about how do you feel about celebrating our country at 250 years and why is it so important that we, and I say collectively, you and I, and people our age, pass that love, that knowledge, and that passion down to the youngest generation of Americans. So 50 years from now, they'll remember it at the 300th anniversary.
Right. Yeah, I think not to be morbid, but the globe is littered with former societies, right? The ruins of societies that were empires that lasted thousands of years. There is no guarantee that our way of life carries on unless we carry it on. So I think to answer your question, to me, that's the importance of letting the young folks know. But they often cite America as being an experiment, and it's the only form of government that's ever existed. And so far, it's working pretty good. I think if you look at the freedoms that we have and you look at the economic growth and how many people we've lifted out of poverty globally, I think it's important stuff. And I think that it's something to not forget. It's really easy to get inundated with negativity nowadays because communication is so broad, so many podcasts and so many news stations and so many Facebook and all of that stuff. To step back and reflect on how things are really going for you in your life. And I think most people would answer that as not too bad.
I'm still in awe, literally, of the men who wrote the Declaration of Independence, of the men who created the Constitution, which is still our form of government. And for me to think that 250 years ago or however long, they created something that you and I still live by today.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I don't know about everybody else. I'll just speak for myself. You think back 250 years ago, it's archaic, right? And it was like, but how did they understand all of these things? And so it's difficult to realize that you and I today on our modest lifestyles that we live better than the king did back then. And it was thanks to those guys that put all of this in motion and all the hard work of the people in between that sort of have lifted us into where we are now. And I think that's something that's worth not forgetting.
You mentioned the website. Could you tell our listeners the name of the website so they can go and find out more about the Kerr250 celebration? And if they want to get involved, how they can do so?
Sure. The website is Kerr250.com. So KERR250, the numbers, .com. And there are lots of articles on there. Ashley Phillips provided us with a list of interesting things that you can celebrate throughout the year that's not just 4th of July. like presidents' birthdays and things like that that are important. So you can see things like that. There's interesting articles on there about some of the history from locally here and how we fit in with the revolution and all of that. And if you want to get involved in some way, there's an email link at the bottom. You can just shoot an email to info@kerr250.com and let us know how you want to get involved. You can volunteer for stuff, you can have an idea and run something, and we'll put it up on the page for folks to attend your event. And yeah, we're pretty open. It's not, none of this is all set in stone. We're happy to have people come and help us celebrate. And I think it's a neat time to be around.
For all of us in Kerr County, I know July 4th is going to be difficult, but I do want everyone to remember it is the birthday of our country.
Yes.
And we say the Pledge of Allegiance for a reason, and we give thanks to our country for a reason. And I hope they will help celebrate our birthday on July 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, on this car show, one of the things that I've struggled with is people tend to be somewhat modest, right? And I think we were talking about this just before the show. And people hear car show and they think, oh, I've got to have a fancy Corvette or I've got to have some hot rod or something like that. This is not that kind of car show. This is really about showing all cars, average cars, cars that these manufacturers came up with and thought was a great idea and wasn't really a great idea. We want to see all of those. You got a second? Can I list a couple?
Please.
Yeah.
Do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's an example. So if you happen to be listening to this and you have a car that's anything like any of these, we want your car in the car show. And your immediate response can be, what, really? Yes, because I want to show them all. So things like a Dodge Neon. When's the last time you've seen one of those floating around? Or a Ford Escort or a Chrysler Sebring. That's probably was like the number one rental car in this country for 10 years, things like that. A Dodge Avenger or Chevrolet Cruze, Saturn Ion. I haven't seen one of those in probably 10 years. So anything like that. I was following on the way to work this morning. I was following a Chevy Yukon on the way. Now, there it is. That's a perfect car in the car show because it's a small piece in the larger puzzle of all of the different types of cars that we saw. And some of them went away. Some of them they stopped making them. So those are the examples of things that I would love to see in the car. You don't have to have a 65 or 69 Corvette that's all polished and shiny. We do have some of those already, in fact. But I want to see more of the common stuff.
And we're celebrating the American automobile industry, and that's part of their story. All of those
absolutely.
models.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, some of them were very successful. Look at the F-150.
Right.
Well, number one selling truck for how many years?
The Suburban.
Yeah. I want to see those in. And I want a lot of people drive those big jacked up things. Bring it on, man. I want to see those along with the base model and all of them. Yeah. So I think it'd be fun if you can walk and see the evolution. I think that'd be a neat deal.
Well, Doug, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to visit with me, and I'm greatly looking forward to this show and the rest of Kerr250.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate you.